Dean DeGuire, Andy, thank you for the invitation. The board, obviously, this is super humbling to be in front of you. I got to be honest. The real reason I said yes to this and I'm here is my fridge was running a little low on spotted cows in Chicago, and I was really craving a Silverman's cheeseburger, so that's where I'll be after this presentation. I sat here 13 years ago, and in one of the early days of this event, and I was sitting in the crowd, and my cousin, who I had recommended for this presentation, a guy by the name of Thomas McDonald, who is my oldest first cousin and a mentor to me in all things business, and he stood up here and gave this exact same speech. Obviously different content, he wasn't with Prologis, but you know, when I was driving up here and thinking about how meaningful this was to me and how I can kind of get that out to all of you to let you know how much this truly does mean to me to be up here in front of you. You know, going to Marquette, something I'm super proud of and helped shape who I am, not only as a person, but in my business career. But then having my family be a part of something that went back 13 years ago that he flew in from out of town, had no business staying up here at a Marquette event, but did it because it was something that I had asked, and that the board at the time, you know, honored him and getting him up here, and just how much that meant to me to have family that was willing to travel for my benefit. And so to be standing here in front of you all is something that just so humbled to be a part of. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I don't get it all that often. I'm usually working with the 300-person team that I have in the central region of the U.S. for Prologis. So to get away and pick your head up for a minute and give back and do something that you otherwise don't get to do every day is really meaningful. And hopefully that's something you guys should all take into account when you go through your careers and as you start to grow and develop. Things like this mean a lot. And so again, honored to be here. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Prologis. We're a really big owner of logistics real estate. The sexy new word of the flavor of the year or the month is data center development, and that's something that we've been a part of for a long time. It just hasn't been a true core business opportunity for us up until late. I'll get into some of the drivers why. That is now something that is very important to us and will be continued revenue or area of growth for us as we move forward. But I want to take a minute to make sure we talk about why are we in the central part of the U.S., why specifically we're in the Great Lakes. We have, you know, we're in over 20 countries. I'll give you a little bit of flavor on who we are just as a company. I know some of you may know, but we live and breathe in logistics real estate. It's something that graduating from Marquette, I didn't even know existed. I actually still think some of my family thinks I sell homes for a living because I'm in real estate, but you kind of evolve, and I've been 13 years at Prologis, and it's pretty cool to be able to look back in that 13-year run and be a part of something that has grown so significantly over the years, and how we've gone about that, why we've been doing what we're doing. But as of today, we've got over 1.3 billion square feet. You know, we're in 4 continents, 20 different countries, a little over 2,500 employees, so we're a very lean organization, but where we really excel and thrive is in the logistics space. And it starts with our customers. Everything we do is around our customers. And I know a lot of competitors say that same thing, and it's, you know, it doesn't mean much unless you really live and breathe it. And so I think this next slide kind of brings to life what I believe, and I drink the Kool-Aid, so maybe I'm a little biased, but what we do differently than others, which has led to our ability to grow with our customers, We talk about it all the time. Our customers aren't one and done. They're not a customer. First of all, we call them customers, we don't call them tenants. They don't just pay us rent, and that's the extent of our relationship. When you amass scale to the extent that we have today, why is that good? What can you do with scale? Saying we're big is pretty cool to say. It doesn't really mean anything. But what do you do with scale? Scale gives you the ability to do more than just build 4 walls and a roof. And I think this slide does a really good job. I was kind of going through investor decks, but the culmination of Prologis and what we are trying to accomplish always starts with our customer first. The left side of this circle is what a lot of real estate companies do, right? You raise money, you buy land, you build a building, you fill it, you can either sell it or you're leasing it and you hang on to it. And in its most basic form, that's what this is. The right side, the blue side, this is all the things you can do with scale. You can take a little more risk. You can understand through data and collection of what our customers need and what they are doing in their space. can lead you to new business lines, new business ideas, opportunities. So I'll give you a couple examples. On the right side, we have operations, essential solutions. So operations, think of, hey, we do a lot of work with Amazon, DHL, FedEx, any big name company. I'll show you a slide in a second. But what you learn through multiple lease negotiations by visiting our space, we operate our facilities, we don't third-party our facilities, so that gives us a direct line of contact to our customers who are paying us rent. And you can learn where their trouble, where are they, what do they need out of their space? What are their problems? Operating essentials for us is a big opportunity. Think about our space, which used to just be 4 walls and a roof, maybe some racking. No one really knew where it was because it was out in the middle of nowhere. And now you're talking about this e-commerce boom, heavy infrastructure that is now coming into our space. How can we be a part of that? How could you go from, in talking to Amazon, for example, and say, hey, not only do we have the building, we've got relationships that we can set up racking in your space, forklift operations. We can scale our platform for the benefit of you. And it doesn't always have to be the Amazons. We have plenty of our facilities that are operated by mom and pop companies. We can use our scale from a buying power standpoint to provide racking and other services that we know that they need and use. And we can bring that to them at a Prologis price, which is using, again, our scale. So that's just one example. Energy and sustainability. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is a huge opportunity for us. 1.3 billion square feet. That's a lot of rooftops. That's a lot of solar opportunity for us. Solar is a very cheap way of making power. We are the second largest corporate producer of solar in the US today, and we only have roofs on under 50% of our warehouses today. So there's a huge opportunity. Again, how do you use scale as an advantage? Our solar production of energy is not only for our customers within the space, it's also for providing power to communities we serve and work within. So opportunities, like I said, with solar energy. Mobility, same thing, workforce charging. Using our scale to provide good pricing power, putting that infrastructure into our facilities so that people that need that value that, come into a situation where we have a competitive advantage because we made that upfront investment into our space, which is going to create a competitive advantage for us. So again, you're talking about, this is all to say, Prologis is bigger than just a landlord. We're trying to do more around the customer, which makes us a heck of a lot more sticky with that customer that's going to want to make them travel with us or us travel with them in terms of their next location or decision that they're making. Here are some of them. These are just some of the big ones, and I'm sure you've all heard of these names. Not one customer makes up more than 5 or 6% of our NOI. Really important when you think about the scale of our business, the diversification we have from a tenant base is something we're very proud of. And again, it stems back to that value we place on each customer that we have because we grow and run alongside them, and that's super important to us. Okay, whittling this down a little bit, this is my world, central part of the US. So we have 3 regions in the United States, East, West, Central. It's 11 markets, think Chicago down through Texas. Our business is not rocket science. It's really about consumption. We have a lot going on with the tariff conversations and a little bit of uneasiness in the markets these days. And what we try to simplify is the message that wherever things are made is not where we're focused. Where we're focused is about where items are consumed. And if you think about on this map, this is a great little microcosm of Prologis just as a global platform. Our 3 largest markets in the central part of the US, Houston, Dallas, Chicago, just so happen to be the most densely populated of any of those markets. So again, at its base case, we are a consumption company. We go where consumption happens. And that's where you're going to see our warehouses. And that's been our strategy all along. And this is just, again, one example of my responsibility, our team's responsibility. And it stems from where people are at. That's where we're going to be. I wish, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I always thought, hey, when I started Prologis, maybe we could build a couple buildings in Omaha, Nebraska, and I could move there and run that, and that'd be like the dream job. And then I realized, we just don't have not enough people around Omaha, Nebraska. Or, Wisconsin. I'd love to be up here a little bit more, but the reality is that we just need more of my types to move up to Wisconsin, and then you can maybe see a couple more of our warehouses up here. But it's where people are at. That's our business. That's where we go. a very simplistic view of how it all works. Raw materials to products that are consumed by customers, and we're on either the international side from an export or an import into the country, or materials and products that are made within the country. They get distributed to homes. We're on the reverse side, on the return centers. We do a lot of return centers, reverse logistics. We're also on the front side of that production. That SKU comes in, you buy it, it goes to your house. That's just kind of how our business operates. So this is a good slide. I think if you're not familiar all that well with the logistics real estate, this is a pretty basic way of looking at it. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. I think this slide does a good job of talking about where we're going. Like, what are we doing with our facilities that is just a little bit different than what we've seen in the past? And we are really focused on these different points that are on this slide because we believe this is huge competitive advantage. This costs a lot more to do any of this on your building. You could build a base building, lease it, sell it, and you're out. And that's what a lot of our competitors do. And I think when we get back to, we are a long-term holder of real estate, how do we bulletproof our facilities and think ahead of where our customers, what they need in the future? How do we put that in now so that we can have a sustainable building that lasts a heck of a lot longer than that 5 or 10 year lease? So these are just some of the things you can read on here, but I talked about on-site solar, our building electrification, which is smart building, so that's pre-wiring infrastructure for Wi-Fi. That's drone utilization that's not necessarily on here, but we're using some innovations around how we manage our facilities. And again, taking people, we have maintenance techs that are out at our facilities every day. They're up on the roofs, inspecting our roofs. So we are using one innovation thing that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later is drone technologies that does thermal readings on our roof and kind of can assess the quality of our roofs at any given time. They can standardize a process where we get a rating of how our roof compares to other facilities that kind of steers us towards which ones we need to replace, which ones we can repair, things like that. Microgrids, we'll talk about that. Fleet electrification. This is all, again, investing in our new facilities for the future. And this is a good way of, I think, laying it out. And I'm happy to take any questions, obviously, after which I'm sure there'll be a bunch. Okay, so let's talk Midwest logistics. So what are the drivers, the major demand drivers for logistics and data center development? You're going to see some of this overlaps. We'll tell you that we've been in the data center business for over 25 years, and we have. We have converted, we have converted several of our facilities over the years for people that for that small demand that needed data centers. We are well located, if you think highly densely populated areas. So some of this logistics demand, kind of overlaps with this data center demand that we're talking about. But I kind of broke them out to show, hey, what is unique to this area of the country and why? And I'll touch on a couple of them. For data centers in particular, access to power, pricing of power and land, super important. Fresh water is absolutely a part of this, although they're finding other ways to cool data centers. Cooling fresh water was a huge part of the early life of data centers. Now they're using oils and other technologies where they don't need the fresh water, but it's still a huge benefit in this part of the country. The Great Lakes make up 20% of the fresh water in the world. I mean, so there's a abundant resource here that should be noted and absolutely comes into decision making when it comes to manufacturing facilities, high water intensive operations. 1 day drive to 2/3 of the US population, another huge draw from the center of the country. So think Indianapolis, Columbus, Chicago. Population density, access to that population is critical for logistics. The Midwest has a unique ability to service a high part of the US population within a 1 day drive. That will never change. That is always going to be a big driver for this area. E-commerce expansion, you'll hear this a lot. This is something that when things get a little rocky, e-commerce seems to be an area that always spikes, and we're seeing that today, even with the tariff talks. This was something that was an evolution underway pre-COVID. COVID hits, e-commerce, sales go way up. So we start to see that huge spike because the availability of products and just the ability to get them to your house during COVID was a huge change and spike for e-commerce. That is a demand for logistics real estate because that product comes out of our warehouses. 22% is what we're expecting this year in terms of retail sales coming from e-commerce. That's only going to continue to go up. And again, we're seeing right now on our earnings call last week, we talked about this. Again, we're seeing a surge in e-commerce demand, and that's mainly because we're seeing a lot of companies stockpile inventory. When you have uncertainty around tariffs, you're going to bring in more because you're not certain about what's to come, so you're stockpiling inventory. E-commerce is going to be a beneficiary of that because of the product selection you're going to have by buying online versus going to brick and mortar. So that is something that is still relatively in its infancy, and that's going to play in a big way here in the central part of the U.S. moving forward. Low natural disaster risk. I mean, this is something that I think you guys have all seen on the news. We've been very fortunate to avoid some of the things that have been happening, and I think that that's, while not a major decision-making point today, I do think it's starting to become more and more of in the minds of, especially if you're making a big CapEx decision where you're not just leasing a space, you're bringing in heavy infrastructure. You want to make sure you're in the best, well-located area that avoids some of what you've been seeing with the fires and earthquakes and whatnot on the coast. Labor, affordability, and labor. This is a big one. I think we have land, we have labor. Our power is the cheapest when you comparatively across the U.S., and we have labor. Those are all big drivers for our business, logistics, manufacturing, and data centers, specifically on the power availability side. 40% of the U.S. natural gas is produced in the Ohio area between the Marcellus and the Utica Shale. Why is that important? Natural gas is what powers our grid. Power availability is critical when we're talking about data centers. That access to natural gas is why you are going to see more data center. I think one of the reasons you are going to see more data center involvement in this part of the country because you are so close to that natural gas access point. I won't go through all these, but I think what it comes down to, if you peel it all back, the center of the U.S., you can reach a lot of people. We're really cheap comparatively to the coast. Our markets are more stable than the coast. We go like this, not like this. So more stability. We've got the labor, we've got the land, and we're a heck of a lot cheaper. So I think that's where you're going to continue to see people come to this area. We are seeing right now, I will mention this, and this stems down through Texas, but manufacturing needs this onshoring effect. We are certainly seeing some of that. With data center development comes data center suppliers. That's a new group that we haven't seen in our space that has been a huge pickup for us in terms of demand. So as you start to see or believe in this whole manufacturing boom that's going to occur, while we don't necessarily play, again, what I talked about, we deal with consumption, but that manufacturing brings along a lot of suppliers with it, and that's what's helping our business in a few markets right now as we speak. This is just a slide to show you what I was talking about, the e-commerce boom, the 22.5% this year, or headed into 2025, and then we're expecting that to continue to climb up to 30%. So again, that's just buying habits. When you're buying something on your phone or your computer and it's showing up on your doorstep, that is the way that we believe people are going to continue to buy. You're going to need facilities, warehouses to be able to do that. The infrastructure in those warehouses is far different. You can carry thousands of SKUs in one warehouse. So you have thousands of different products. So the availability and access to those products through our warehouses is why we believe e-commerce is going to be a continued demand driver for our space. It's different than a brick and mortar. So it's just you can offer way more products. You can get them to people faster. We have not built it out. It's still 22.5% in, and we feel we've got runway to go. Okay, so let me just do a quick survey, and this really this is more about the data center boom. But when I was doing a little bit of research on this, and it's really I want to codify why this is happening. Why are we talking about data centers? What is the boom related to? And why do we think it's going to continue? But just on a quick show of hands, How many of you at least stream a TV service today or a movie or thing? Most people today, right? How about an EV that you're driving, the cameras, the sensors? How many have one today or are looking to buy one in the next couple of years? Right? Multiple devices that you're charging every night, a watch, a phone, iPad, all of this stuff is using power, it's using cloud storage. So this is what I think is really interesting. This room, plus or minus 300, 400 people, this room would have consumed in 2015 5,000 gigabytes per year, total, this room in cloud storage space. You fast forward that 10 years, 57,500 gigabytes of cloud storage space, and that is all data center storage. That is AI. We're talking about the boom of AI coming. This is why data centers are becoming so relevant. This is also the biggest challenge that we have because we don't have the power infrastructure to be able to support all of us in what we're doing and what we're buying into. And it's basically showing that, the real difference is data centers consume 3% of the world's electricity. That number is expected to double in 2030. Your home is not the endpoint anymore, it's the starting point. So when you are the one contributing to all this cloud storage, and that's something that we just haven't seen, but we very well believe it's gonna be a big part of each and every one of our lives as we're moving forward. So that's where the demand is really coming from. It's the watches, it's your cell phones, it's your iPads, it's your cars that you're driving, all that sensor, all that information, it's everything you do every day. You're touching something that has to do with, that runs it back to the cloud. So what is our involvement? I've talked about it, we've been in the business for a long time before, but what are we really doing as a strategic initiative within Prologis today? We have our own data center team to start with. So this is something we would do on the side of our desk when that demand was there. We would look to convert an existing warehouse building that had a lot of power, maybe there was an old manufacturing plant, and we would do that and lease it, and they would kind of figure out how to operate the data center, but we would own it. Now we have a strategic business plan around data centers, a strategic business plan around locking up power. That's the biggest thing right now. It's working with your local municipalities and power providers to lock power at your site. So this is just a quick snapshot of where we're at today. You can see that clustering effect of controlled land. So maybe we don't own the land, but we option the land. And we option that land because we may have insight into the ability to provide a lot of power at that site. Maybe there's a substation coming in. Maybe we ourselves are going to build a substation. But right now it's a power grab. Everyone's trying to get their arms around where can you access and control the most amount of power, because if you can get in front of that, you can get in front of the user demand that's coming to that spot. And they're very few and far between now. Again, the infrastructure we currently have just is not capable of keeping up with the demand in this space, which is why power right now is so incredibly valuable. Okay, and then lastly, I'll give you one quick example of this that we were involved with in Chicago. And this is the perfect story of what I was talking about. How we built this building in 2005. We had leased it as a logistics center. It's in the heart of Elk Grove Village, which is O'Hare Market for us, which is one of the tried and true industrial markets in the whole country. There's over 1 billion square feet of warehouses in this pocket of Chicago. And we're clipping along $4 to $5 rents. We're leasing it to 3PL logistics providers, and we're humming along. And what you realize is the fiber connectivity that was grandfathered in here, or that was already established by Elk Grove Village, is incredibly valuable today, especially because that fiber provides the access to the ability and infrastructure to have a significant amount of power. So all of a sudden what you're seeing is data center demand in this little pocket of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, spiking, because someone way back in the day had the vision that data centers were going to be a huge priority, and so they spent a bunch of money putting in fiber lines. But the truth of it is, it's one of the hottest places in the country right now. Chicago is actually one of the only states that is an exporter of energy. So the infrastructure is very strong there. It's prominent. You see a lot of data center demand right now. This building took 5 years. We took it off the market. What happened was we leased it till about 2015 or 16. We talked about, hey, we know that this has the ability to provide a significant amount of power. Let's see if we can turnkey a data center project. So our original thesis was, when you're doing a powered shell versus a turnkey, powered shell data center is you're bringing the power to the building, and you're saying, hey, we've got a building that can produce 32 megawatts of power. And then you sit back, and then a user comes in and says, hey, we'll take the building, thank you. The biggest hurdle is the power, you've got it, we'll take it from here. What we learned during that process is backup power, power stability is also equally as important. When we had disruption in the supply chain, having power to the building wasn't good enough. So we utilized Prologis scale, and we pre-purchased backup generators and power. You had multiple sources of power that leads to zero disruption in the data center world, which is critical. And then we were able to attract one of a big data center user that I'm not at liberty to discuss, but we were able to sign a lease with them on a turnkey. So it went from powered shell, which is, hey, here we have the power, you can go lease it, to, hey, now we have all of the equipment and the infrastructure, we're gonna build it all out for you, and you're gonna sign a significant, a long-term lease. And then we actually sold this building just because our strategy has shifted a little bit to long-term holder of logistics real estate. We were gonna kind of shed some of our risk profile when it comes to data centers, which is still what we're gonna ultimately do. And, but these are big dollar investments with big returns. And this is just one of our success stories that was one of the early opportunities in our data center pursuit as a company. So this just happened this past year. HMC Capital was the buyer. It was a 174,000 square foot warehouse that we converted, again, turnkey to a data center. And that was a logistics building 5 years ago. We have over 30 pursuits going at this exact same time. We have people right now today that are going building by building at Prologis to say, what type of infrastructure can we bring in? Can this be a data center conversion site? We're trying to package all these up and go to the big players and say, here's our portfolio of data centers, opportunities, which ones would you like? And let's work together. So this is certainly something that plays into our hand when it comes to just logistics space versus data center space. We've got 1.3 billion square feet of it, and we're gonna figure out which ones are gonna make the most sense and continue to take advantage of it. That's a whole lot of talking. That's all I got. So yeah, happy to take questions, and we can move on to the next session. But thank you again for the time and listening to me. Yeah.
All right, so thank you, Rudy. And now I'm going to invite Dean DeGuire back up to the stage. And another introduction is warranted. To my left here is Matt Waters. So Matt is going to be co-leading the Fireside Chat along with Dean DeGuire. Matt is the president of the Commercial Real Estate Club here at Marquette University. He's a member of the 2026 cohort of the Real Estate Asset Program and was a member of Marquette's 2025 Harold E. Eisenberg Foundation Case Competition Team, which took first place out of 19 schools in Chicago just 2 weeks ago. Congratulations, woo-hoo. Matt. And he's also a recipient of the prestigious Eisenberg Scholarship given out to only 4 undergraduate real estate students nationally each year, and he's a native of here, La Crosse, Wisconsin. So please join me in welcoming Matt, and welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Sweet.
Lead us off, Matt.
Let's do it. So let's break the ice, Rudy. I have a very, very serious question that I think we're all just dying to know the answer to.
Yeah.
Which do you prefer, Caffrey's or Murphy's?
Murphy's.
Why?
I can't get into the memories I had there, but that's why I prefer Murphy's. A lot of good memories of Murphy's.
Right on. All right.
Rapid fire, my friend.
Rapid fire, get to know you a bit more. Where'd you grow up?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. What was your first dorm on Marquette's campus?
McCormick.
McCormick Place? Man.
No, you just get to come back in a different way.
Yeah.
How about your first off-campus living apartment?
16th and State. It was a house with 4 of my idiot buddies, and we lived there for junior and senior year, and it's still there today. Still looks as shitty as it did then.
Excellent real estate decision. Well done.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place in Milwaukee?
Sobelman's. We'd go there before games, after games. The original Sobelman's is one of my favorite spots. Yeah.
Keep going.
Sure. What's some of your favorite classes in Marquette or favorite teacher?
Yeah, so I was supposed to be a dentist, which is really a lot of real estate people don't end up. But my favorite class was history of jazz, mainly because I got to sit with all the players. And if you remember, I graduated '03, so I hit this thing square on the nose. We were Final Four '03, and I was right there alongside D. Wade back in the day, who used to call me Big Rudy. But I remember, the professor would walk in and he would play jazz music, and we would sit there for a half hour or whatever it was. I was like, this is the greatest class of all time. So
Sounds awesome.
I got to sit with the basketball team, and that was awesome. No, but I had so many great experiences. I mean, because I graduated, I think I was an advertising major that was doing all the prerequisites for dental school. So I was chemistry, biology, all that. Good stuff. So that gave me a really cool cross section of different schools within Marquette, and was able to meet a lot of great professors. One, Tim Lannon, who was the former president, I think at Marquette. We had a special relationship. He was a Creighton University grad with my parents, and so I stayed in close contact with him. But he had a couple conversations with me that really kind of changed my trajectory in my career. And I always valued even those small interactions, but I still think about them today. One happened just outside of Jesu, and I swear to God, I was sitting there in church, and I felt like he was talking right at me at his homily, which was something like, just because you think you should do this one thing doesn't mean that that's actually the best use of your talents. And I remember him, struggling with some of the chemistry, and I was like, God, I just, my dad and my brother are dentists, and I just want to be like them, and I want to go back to Omaha and work with them. And I remember him just, whatever he said, it hit me, and it kind of changed some of the course of just how I was thinking about life. So he would jump out to me as someone at Marquette that made a big impact on me.
So then going off that, why real estate?
It was too stupid to do anything else. I love physical assets. The stock market is great. I loved being around something that I could touch and feel and understand. And I always wanted to be able to build something from nothing. So buying a piece of land, understanding how the construction works, figuring out how to attract somebody to it, but always being there to physically touch it. That to me was something that I always gravitated towards. Yeah.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah.
So now bring it back. As you're trying to build physical stuff, that stuff's getting a little bit more expensive with these tariffs. And so between the company itself and the region that you serve, you've got a front row seat to that.
Yeah.
And so it's just, if you kind of looked at what is happening with tariffs right now, how is that changing both how you're operating the business and, more importantly, how your customers are trying to operate their business?
Yeah, I think no doubt it's choppy. I think that, to sit up here and tell you what we think is going to happen, we have no idea, because it changes on the hour, on the day sometimes. But I will say, going back to my point, where products are made are less important to us than where they're consumed. And through all of this, the reality or the truth is consumption doesn't pick up and move all that quickly. So our strategy on our 1.3 billion square feet is all around consumption, less to do about where it comes from. But we do think there's two things that are happening now. One, like the stockpiling that I talked about a little bit, or noted a little bit earlier, we are seeing that. We are seeing an uptick in people trying to get product over to the U.S. Our utilization rate, something we track, our warehouse utilization rate. So this is how much of the warehouse on average our customers are using. I think that's up over 85% now, which is a higher mark than we saw a quarter ago, and something we continue. So that kind of makes sense when you're talking about stockpiling and using that excess space. What do I think that we believe consumption will remain where it's at. I think there are countries that will benefit ultimately from this. I think Canada will be a beneficiary of this. I think Mexico could certainly be a beneficiary of this. I think places like Brazil and India could also be, beneficiaries of tariff policy that may impact the U.S. But at the end of the day, people are still going to buy stuff. We're all still going to buy stuff. So where it comes from may change, but where we have facilities that store it isn't going to change.
Well, and so then build off of that is, so now you've gone physical consumption, but then you highlighted digital consumption as well. And so as you think about then outfitting what you build out and how you manage it, has it really switched from physical first to now digital first?
Yeah, I think we have 100%. Our facilities are becoming way more complex. So the thesis starts with, part of our strategy was always let's get in with the customer on the real estate side and then offer them these ancillary business lines that can make us money. The reality is that sometimes these leads are coming from the more digital side of the fence, which are groups that we're trying to establish, and start there because we're learning that some of these investments that are being made in the real estate space come a year or 2, 3 before the real estate team even knows they have a need. And so we're learning that because of that investment is so significant in comparison to rent, we need to be surrounding them on the other side of the fence to be able to see where they're going. Hey, we've got this need. Here's the infrastructure that we're going to use. Here's our sort facility that costs $50 million, and it's going to go somewhere in this area. And if we can be a part of that conversation on that side, it's going to help lead us to opportunities on the real estate side. So it's absolutely something that is shifting.
That's pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so now then, like your favorite picture that you had of just how things are getting built out and how you lay out the facilities, how much of the design of the facility is being driven by your internal team versus being driven by what the customers are asking you for?
So the right answer is the customer is leading that is leading that discussion. There's obviously different levels of customers that have different objectives, motivations. There are still customers today that see us purely as a landlord, and that decision is we need a 300,000 square foot warehouse, no bells and whistles, and we will build that all day long. But when we are in the room with some of our larger customers talking about facilities that either they're envisioning or we're bringing to the table that look very different than some of the slides you saw on that deck, and that is the cool part of what we're. And again, it starts with those deep relationships. Like if you don't have those deep relationships and you're not in that room, someone else is in that room making those decisions. And our whole thesis is we got to be in the room. If we don't disrupt ourselves or we don't disrupt the whole old school industrial logistics real estate world, someone else is going to do it, and we're positioned better than anyone to be able to do it ourselves. And so that's a huge part of what we're going for.
Oh, so play off of that. What's the hook that gets you in the room? Why do they have you at the more senior levels getting involved in the design choice?
Yeah, steady hand. We have, our service to our customers. We have a customer index every year that we're very proud of. So we are looked at. I believe our brand is very strong when it comes to how we treat people, how we treat our buildings, how our buildings look, how they function. So it starts with, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk on a day-to-day basis, and that starts with our people and our culture. We also are one of only 2 publicly traded REITs with an A balance sheet. So when you're going into, you talk about COVID, you talk about tariff discussions, that's all noise, that's all variables, that's all, how do you eliminate anything that can get in the way of what our customers want? It's by coming to them saying, we're going to be there through thick and thin. We've got the balance sheet to do it. You're going to be with us through this whole thing together. And we've proven to you over your last 50 leases with us across 10 different countries that we're a good landlord. I think we deserve to be at that table.
Good place to be.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, tag, you're it.
Sure. So talking about data centers with the boom of AI and cloud, how does Prologis integrate AI, and what do you think students should know about AI going forward?
Yeah, it'll steamroll if you don't get on board with it. I think it's something that you have to be using today. We use it all the time, and I still think we're in an elementary level of using it as a company. But we have, think of the data that comes with 1.3 billion square feet of of goods. That's almost 3% of the world's GDP flows through our warehouses on any given year. And you better believe we look at that data and we're trying, and by the way, before that's on, computer disks and Excel files, and you can take AI and take a hell of a lot of information and synthesize that down into 1 or 2 bullet points in a second. Then that changes our whole investment strategy. We're going to use that. It's not going to ever, it's going to ride sidecar is what we like to say. It's never going to take the place of our core talent, but it's going to ride sidecar and it's going to make us a heck of a lot smarter. So we view AI as it's a necessary piece of our business. It's going to absolutely help us make better informed decisions. And we have this, we just had our town hall last week, and it's a huge part of what we're doing, and we're preaching to get on board, or else, it's going to steamroll you. So it's a big part of us.
So not to give away any trade secrets, but was there a kind of a finding or a nugget that you had from using some of the AI tools that came across your desk recently that you kind of found surprising or helpful?
Yeah, so sometimes, intuition has been a really big part of decision making in real estate that goes way back.
Get out.
Right, it's like, yeah, this building performs well, or I love this building, we've owned it for 30 years. And there's a lot of times, where it's like, well, what? It's been vacant for 2 years. It's like, oh yeah, but it's been leased for the last 20. It's a lot of just that type of conversation. And to look at our individual assets and be able to create and see performance on size of building, for example, is 22 foot clear something we should own? Is 40 foot clear was something we should own? Is a cross dock performing better than a front load? All of these things that we in theory have intuition around, yeah, this is better or this is worse. We've got a ton of data now that was really hard to sift through that we can then plug in and say, you know what? In this location in Chicago, that 22 foot clear building actually performs really damn well. But over here, maybe we should think about selling this building because over the last 10 years we've owned it, we've put this much into it and it's yielded X, Y on the, Y on the return front. So it's 100% going through that right now. Our disposition strategy that we create.
So you're basically playing Moneyball on your portfolio.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sure. So myself and a lot of students are in the room, and I just want to know, looking back in your shoes, what would you change about your early career, or any tips and tricks, advice?
Yeah. I loved some of my closest friends today are from Marquette, and I was talking to one of them on the way up here actually, and I was telling him I was doing this, and we were talking, why is Marquette such a special place, or what, looking back on it through your career, I never thought I'd be sitting here talking to you, all of you, and I was running around going to basketball games and having a great time and living up the college experience, but there's something about this place that, when you learn how to interact with people and you learn how the EQ part of life is so critically important, especially in the day and age of devices, and you can get so distracted by all this other stuff, what we were just talking about, which is actually going to help our business. But the basics of, can you go walk up and have a conversation with somebody? Are you willing to go sit next to somebody you don't know? Do you have a network, a friend group that's going to push you to be a better individual? Do you have mentors around you that are not going to call out your bullshit? And are they going to push you to be the best person you can be? That's all stuff that came from Marquette for me. And so what would I change? Not a thing. I didn't know where I was going here. I had no path. I thought I was going to be a dentist. I ended up in real estate. But the one consistent thing I had was people that never let me get away with my own bullshit. And I think if you have the right friends around you and the right people, it doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't really matter what you do. But if you can get the most out of people around you and they make you feel and push you to be the best you can be, like that is where I would guess. That's where I would direct anyone in this room that's thinking about a career. It's not about the name on the business card. It's about the people you surround yourself with. And I think the more people you surround yourself with that are really good people, you get to places like Prologis, because that's where I've been here for 13 years. I never thought I'd be here for 13 years. The only reason I'm still here after 13 years isn't because that ain't Prologis. It's because of the people I get to work with every day.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things that up-and-coming generation is more concerned with is sustainability. And you've actually been building a lot of that into your facilities. When you're doing that, how much of that is basically you're trying to play to the market versus how much of it is really, it's just the lowest cost, most resilient, reliable place to go for powering and managing a facility?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it doesn't help or it doesn't hurt that we're a publicly traded company, and so sustainability is something we're obviously very concerned about. It's also the right thing to do, just from the environmental standpoint, but it also is a huge attractor to some of our larger customers. Again, if we can provide something that others can't, and it's a differentiator for us, and by the way, it's also, again, the right thing for the environment, we're all on board with that. So I don't think there's one answer to that, meaning I think it's serving multiple purposes. I think it's the right thing to do. I think we deeply care about the environment. We have a lot of, carbon production, our cement, there's a lot of things that we do that, is looked at and can be questioned, but we're making investments in a lot of these things to counter that, to better position ourselves, but then also it helps our customers reach their goals too. If they go into one of our facilities that has solar on the rooftop, it has reduced joint slabs, in the concrete floor that lower CO2 emissions. Those are all things that are benefits to our customers that we can provide that others aren't willing to spend that extra $1 a foot on or extra 50 cents a foot on that we are willing to do.
And are you seeing the payoff from it is really the question.
Yeah, TBD, something we talk about all the time. Are we marketing it well enough? Are we, me talking to all of you is one thing, but do our customers understand when they're out touring 5 different facilities, this facility has solar that you are going to be able to get a lower cost of power by X dollars, and and that's one of 5 things that we're going to offer. But the reality is we're doing it, but we're still trying to piece it together on like what are we actually selling here at the end of the day. We're starting to see it, but it's still in its infancy.
Well, and just a play off of that is take out even sustainability and cost. Anybody notice the weather is just a little bit crazy these days? And you are right in intense weather zones, especially down in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Flip it around is how much is resiliency in the facilities a factor as opposed to just the sustainability play?
Yeah, especially as we talked about, the infrastructure that's now in our facilities where it never used to be, absolutely. Resiliency in our power grid or even local. We're talking, SMRs is a new thing, just small modular reactors, something that we're, that is constantly being thrown around, and we haven't done anything with that yet. But I think, to your point, self-reliance or resiliency and being able to provide that at your location is going to be something that is going to be, in my opinion, a much bigger factor moving forward. But you're right. We've had every year we have facilities that are demolished through tornadoes, hurricanes. So that's something we're constantly dealing with, and don't think for a second we're not thinking about resiliency on that. Yeah.
Matt, tag in.
Sure. Where do you see yourself and/or Prologis in the next 5 to 10 years?
Hopefully in this crowd, watching someone else do this talk. No, I don't. Anytime I've had a plan, it doesn't seem to play out the way I think. So, I live life for the day and in the moment. And I've got 3 little kids, so I see myself coaching them. I see myself being in Chicago. I see myself continuing to be around really quality people that I get a lot out of my work in the day to day. And I hope I'm more involved with Marquette's real estate program. It wasn't around when I was here, but it certainly had an impact on my life, this university. So I don't know where the next 5 years will go, but I know my priorities are family, work, and giving back to the places that help me.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, so then keep with the crystal ball for a moment. It's if you had kind of been in the industry, you've seen a number of shifts happen. As you got this crowd assembled here, are there certain things that you'd say are kind of watch outs as you look forward in the next kind of 5 years that the industry is going to have to confront?
Yeah, I think that pre-election you had this hesitancy of decision making. Then you had the election. Then we saw this first quarter, which was really strong for us in our logistics space, where demand was starting to creep back. Now you have this tariff issue, which is causing, again, reluctance of decision making to some extent. So you've had this a year or so of this kind of bumpy demand, if you will. I think that there's pent-up demand that's coming. And I think in our space in particular, you haven't been able to get shovels in the ground because it's pretty damn expensive to do it. And for all of the things we talked about earlier, things are just more expensive. So I think we're gonna wake up, a year from now with a supply issue, which is a positive thing for companies that own a lot of existing supply. And if demand, I think you're gonna have a pickup of demand at some point when things settle down a little bit. And I think that's gonna bode really well for owners of logistics real estate. Further out than that, I think that, I think this e-commerce thing is here to stay. I think infrastructure in our space is here to stay. I think that, I think logistics real estate is going through a early innings of evolution, and I think we're gonna wake up 5 years from now and things are gonna look pretty rosy in our space, is my prediction, which is probably gonna be wrong, but I like to believe it.
Tape rolling,
Yeah,
save
yeah.
for 5 years. All right, Matt, close us out.
Alrighty. Best piece of advice you've ever heard and want to give to the crowd?
Best piece of advice. Trust your gut on people. Trust your gut on people. I'm also a big believer in enjoying the ride and not always how do I say this? Trust your gut on people and don't forget to enjoy the ride while you're working towards something. And I found myself the first few years of my career just head down, grinding. And I'm like, if I can just get here. And then I would get there, and then I'd say, well, if I can just get here. And you're 4 or 5 years in, and you're like, well, I didn't enjoy any of that, and I don't really know what I'm going towards. So I think that my dad was a big, and my mentor Tom McDonald, who I talked about a little bit earlier. But those are people that really impacted my life when it came to talking about some of this stuff. But it's like, if you're not enjoying the ride, what are you doing? So just every part of the way, pick your head up every once in a while and make sure you're enjoying your day to day, because life moves pretty fast. So what's Ferris's line?
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around every once in a while, you just might miss it.
Yeah, that's it.
I thought you were going to do kind of Ben Stein and anyone, tariffs.
Yeah.
Well, Rudy, thanks so much for joining us. Real honor
Thank
to
you,
have
Rudy.
you here.
No, yeah, I thank you all for the time. Yeah.